Today is November 28th, 2016. It is 7:12. Tonight's Finance Committee meeting is being recorded with new camera setup at the Halifax Town Hall by Area 58. So on our agenda tonight, we have mail, approval of meeting minutes, line item transfer / reserve fund transfers. 7:15, Board of Selectmen discussion of FY18 budget, appointments of new board members, 10 town discussion, public participation, calendar, and adjournment. So up first, mail.
Don't have any.
No mail. Second, we have approval of meeting minutes. Kendra sent those out. So these are from Monday, November 14th. Myself, Linda, Mel, Stu, and Diane were present. There are a motion to approve meeting minutes.
Motion to approve as printed.
I would make one minor adjustment. The clerk is now.
Yeah, we questioned, or I had a few people question it. My only thing was that Mel was the clerk that night. So it doesn't matter, we can scratch it off.
You could both sign it.
Doesn't matter. Whatever you choose to do, we can make the correction.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. You guys toss a coin.
Can both sign for
Just in case.
posterity.
So we're missing one selectman. No line item or reserve from transfers
Nope.
at this time. Okay.
The one below it was actually for a discussion.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
I guess we can wait a few minutes. We have a new talent bank form that was filled out. So
Yep, and she's all
Kendra's
set. I have her booked in for an appointment on the 12th.
December 12th.
She can't come till 8 o'clock though.
Okay. On that day is the only day they could schedule the injection in my hip. So
Okay.
not sure if I will make that meeting or not.
I've already confirmed the fire chief is coming that night at
Okay.
7:15.
Okay.
So hopefully we can talk to him long enough and then have enough to fill in.
Okay.
And she's hoping to be here by 8.
Okay.
I guess, Corey, one question would be whether you, I know it's premature, but also we're dealing with the selectmen's schedule. If we don't have Corey on the 13th day after, then the next time we're meeting is January 11th. I don't know if you all are meeting between the meeting on the 12th and the 10th, so maybe it doesn't matter.
I think that we said
We're not meeting on the 2nd, but we're meeting the
the
next
9th,
Monday.
right?
So we're meeting the 9th.
I think that's fine.
Okay. So maybe we might have, either we might come to your meeting on the 9th.
Okay.
Or we might have her coming to the meeting on the 10th.
Okay. We still, Julianne never sent in, so we actually only have one vacancy at this point in time. So I will reach out to her again. Hello.
You only have one?
Julianne never submitted her official,
Oh,
so I need to get a hold of her. So the only vacancy we currently have is Nikki spot. So
Did I send that? Shoot. I have a thank you note written up to her too. And I meant to send it out for you to approve and for me to bring down to sign tonight.
okay.
I thought I had it with me and apparently I don't.
Well, we'll take care of it next week.
Yep. I had it done. I thought I sent it, but
All right. So we have an appointment at 7:15 with the selectmen to discuss next year's upcoming budget. Hello. Hello.
Charlie, did you? His back of the Charlie, do you want to do the overview?
Yeah, we're comfortable. I don't mean to say that you spend, it's not so far one of these years where it's looking like right at the beginning we're behind the eight ball. As you know, I've done the usual numbers. The financial team reviewed these a couple of weeks ago. We made an adjustment, which I've included. I'll get to that in a minute. But just for familiarity, I always start looking at revenues. So the property tax limit for year one, you have 2.5%. You have the new growth, which is a current estimate from the assessor's office. You have the debt exclusions. There are actuals for 17 because we don't know what the number is for 18 from Silver Lake, for instance, but it's a wash. Any money we get by the debt exclusion, obviously we're spending by the debt exclusion, so I make an adjustment there, it will come out the other end. For the moment, I'm not assuming we're leaving any money on the table. That's not necessarily what happens, but I had to pick a number and that's what it is right now. So that gives us our property tax levy cap, including local receipts. This is based on the cherry sheet, not the recap sheet. For this year, Sandy and I are comfortable with adding $50,000 on the motor vehicle above what was in the recap sheet. My guess is it's probably going to be a bit more than that, but we're always a bit conservative, and so we're starting off with that posture. It might, if things sustain, could go up to $100,000 more on the motor vehicle than what we estimated for year one now. We're not doing anything with ambulance receipts yet. The number that's in the recap sheet includes the increase based on the fees that were upped at the town. First, essence two things. One, we spent the money obviously, but second, once town meeting relinquished control over the fees back to the board of selectmen and the selectmen up the fees for the ambulance, the rates went up. Sandy continues to follow how much money is being generated. At this point, Sandy, it's about not a wash, but basically we're covering our nut, but that says there's nothing left over.
It's, yeah.
So whatever we thought we were going to raise the year in, we're assuming that's the number for next year. There's not going to be any additional increase upon that. Meals tax, we didn't put anything in the meal, for this, the budget we're in this year, the year we're in this year, is we didn't throw any money into meals tax when we were doing the budgets for 17. However, we can now start doing that for 18, so we just threw that in. It doesn't show up, it didn't show up on the recap sheet. I believe it shows up on the recap sheet. I think maybe under local receipts.
That's right.
Starting at 18, but that's probably a little bit below, not a lot, might be 5,000 below what cash estimate is. Let's just start.
On that, Charlie, are we already seeing revenue come through?
No, the trucks are starting to come in.
Is that quarterly basis?
Yes.
Can't say quarterly.
But we only got, the first quarter was a weird quarter because we only got 1 month. Because we were only having it for 1 month out of those first 3 months. So.
And the other thing to know is that I know we had talked about using that in the capital plan, so we're continuing to identify that number. And, you know, this year's free cash looks pretty good, but that's only, it's a one-shot deal. So that,
That might be a discussion we'll all have tonight, in fact, or later on this year, is are we going to move this over to its own spot for its own reasons and
Right.
not include it as a general revenue.
right. And I think that we had sort of talked about that, Charlie, when we
Yeah.
were talking about supporting that meals tax, that I think for our board, it was really with the thought that it would go toward capital items since we had continuously seen free cash number decrease over the years, that it was becoming harder and harder to come up with the funds for our capital project. So I definitely think that we need to identify that amount toward capital.
Also, we're going to start at some point soon not having really an overlay surplus, so to speak. So that amount won't be there anymore either. We'll get to that in a minute. State aid, I've been monitoring the revenue numbers on the state. They are anemic, and they've known that already, that they're up, but they're not reaching the goals. Overall, they're running 2% above last year. Some categories are a little bit better than that, but The thing is, 1% for us is only $8,000. And that we increased our local aid on the general local aid, not the Chapter 70. It's only $8,000. It's not material in a $22 million budget. So I'm just going to leave that alone for right now. I suspect when the budget comes out, they'll give just as they've done in the past few years, every single school district will get something like another $25 per pupil or something like that. Okay, so over there, 25 times 750 doesn't get you very far. Again, out of the 22 million budget, just won't be material, won't drive our decision making. So that gives us a total estimate of what we're going to be bringing in. So we're taking things off the top even before we do our budget, the cherry sheet assessments, the tax title, the reserve for abatements. That's going to be a number we're going to need to discuss during the next few months with the assessors. One of the things that the municipal modernization legislation did was take all, every single year's overlay that you set aside and squash it into one, so that you won't have to budget a separate amount every single year for that year's overlay. What you're going to need to do is make sure your total overlay account is sufficiently large to cover any potential abatements. On one hand, that means at some point you're going to have a year that the overlay reserve that you have to put in is going to be very small. It might be, go ahead.
So does that mean that we're not,
Instead of 160,000, it might be 20,000, it might be 50,000.
Right. And then you'll
But yes, at the other end, that means no overlay surplus.
Unless it's encumbered, unless
Yeah.
you know that there's something that could be challenged, you want to keep in the overlay.
Well, yeah, but that won't be surplus.
Right.
And I would think that this year would probably be a good indicator as we are in our actual triennial, so.
Well, she got maybe what? A dozen abatement requests?
Yeah, I think it was 12 or 13. It was small. And historically, we don't get a lot of abatement reports. And we've always been conservative in terms of keeping enough on hand. And of course, we've been using it for the overlay and then you can draw from it as needed. So it's going to be a lot easier for the Board of Assessors now because you don't have to have the individual years because you can only go back so many years and have to keep track of it. But it's going to become a smaller number, which is going to be less available.
Right.
You know, we won't be putting as much money in, we won't get as much surplus back, which is another reason, as you all just talked about a couple of minutes ago, to devote the sales tax to it.
Right.
That's to replace what we had historically been getting from the overlay.
So-
We used to use the surplus from the overlay to our capital items.
So that-
we won't have that.
so that means that we actually need to take a part of the money from personal property and personal and property taxes and devote that towards capital items. Because that fund's going away, so we're gonna have to start to add.
Well, it's not going away exactly, it's just going to be less.
Well, I think we've been talking about heading that direction anyway, in the sense of, I think, in terms of the financial policies of the town, to say at some point we're going to pick a particular percentage of the total budget and say we're going to devote 3%, 4%, whatever it is, to capital. The sources of funding will be first the free cash, maybe then second sales tax, but then if we have to dip into our normal operating, or if you're saying property taxes, then we do that. We just say that's taken off the top before we start doing the operating because we need to be spending a certain amount of money every single year on capital.
Yeah, I think looking at what other towns do, they do that. They take a certain percentage of that money and they put it aside for capital items.
Which I think is a smart way to do it.
It is, because if there's a year where you have to cut capital items to afford things, you can make that decision if it's a smart decision. It might not be.
So that brings us down to what's available for raise and appropriate. Right now, I'm assuming no free cash, no overlay reserve surplus. Obviously, that's erroneous, but these numbers really are meant for the operating budget rather than for the capital plan. So, I could put money in there, but then I start adding capital projects down the bottom. There are other sources of funding, the water receipts, solid waste receipts, bond premiums, the dog account, water pollution abatement trust. Those in essence are a wash. We bring in that money, we spend the money, it ends up being the same of both ends of the seesaw there. Totals all sources for the annual town meeting. I put in the amount we approved in Article 4 last year, or the year we're now, but in May of 16. I added the union articles into the mix, and then the increases for the summer, for the operating budget for the summer meeting, which were the fire department increase in personnel plus the dispatcher contract. Two numbers that I'm somewhat, two numbers I know are going to increase. The health insurance will increase. Right now, funding is 12%. They're not going to, Mayflower won't come up with a rate increase probably until late this winter, early this spring. The 12% at this point may be a little high. It's not as if it's going to be 2 or 3%. It might be 9 or something like that. We'll see how it plays out, because the first 4 months of claims for this year have been pretty good. They've been right where they were expecting it without use of their fund balance, which means they're not losing more money this year, so we'll see how that plays out. The retirement increase is known. That's an actual set amount from the county retirement system, so that's done. I've left all the lines of places we think would be budget increases, any change in special ed, the voc ed, Silver Lake, the step increases for the school, the annual wage increases over there, step increases for us, the annual wage increases to our general Silver Lake increase. But then also took out, however, the reserve fund, or put in the reserve fund, because we used raise and appropriate for that, and then the OPEB the same thing. So right now, we're in decent shape. 453,000 is roughly 2%. It doesn't mean I'd say increase the budget by 2% for everything and such, but there have been years where we've been sitting here in November where that number has been much, much lower. So as I said, we're comfortable. I mean, there are a lot of decisions to make that include, for instance, we included the meals tax in there. Take that out and devote that to the capital plan, then your surplus drops to 380. But then if you say, well, we don't need the overlay reserve at 160, we need it at 50, well, then it goes back up again. So there'll be some things to talk about. And then there are some other philosophical things to be talking about, such as, are we going to consciously leave a certain amount of money on the table this year or not? If so, how much are we going to leave? And that decision drives how much money is available for everything else. But like I said, it's better to have options. We've got options, as opposed to other years where I was crossing my fingers and hoping we were going to make ends meet.
Well, I know last year we looked not as good as this, but we thought we were going into the budget season of, looking pretty good until we got certain numbers. So there are a lot of numbers that come into play that can change their game quickly, sped being one of them. And I know, Gordon, at the last finance meeting, you mentioned that there was an increase of just even the preschool students.
It was a large increase in the
80%
preschool.
almost, so.
80% increase, and so we need to sort of know that sped number could really change the game. So obviously, I think we would love to leave money on the table, but I think it's too soon to make that decision until we see what's going on with that particular end of the budget.
I think we also should have some money pegged aside for the Mont Ponce watershed as well. It's an ongoing issue that we don't have a resolution for, but we should have some change in our pockets to deal with it if a solution presents itself.
Right.
That we're not going to a special town meeting.
Right, I think that even though our free cash looks pretty healthy, I do think that we should take back up the 70,000 and put it, just because that was a commitment that we made when we talked about it.
What was the free cash number again, Cindy?
It's over there.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge amount.
It's like
But-
908.
But we need an ambulance this year that's gonna eat maybe 3 times of that.
And we've got the
We've got
COA, the
yeah.
roof, we've got some real,
We've got some big ticket items, you know, so.
So what's the philosophy on the school building? Because are we gonna look to go debt exclusion for that, or are we gonna?
I think that's the only way we're gonna be able to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a project that might guess would at least be double whatever we do with council on aging. I expect by the end of next, January, we'll get a process in from the design firm. They're gonna be doing a visit to the school on Thursday. They're gonna be moving forward aggressively to try to meet some deadlines that the state has. But when the building committee, meaning the school roof building project was met, we added a number of things into a possible project that weren't the exterior stuff that we were originally talking about. We're talking acoustics in the gym, we're talking about the fire suppression system. You have to pick out the other things we're talking about, but all those things that it means a bigger project. And while I'm fairly confident that by using the state, we do go ahead with the council on aging project and do use the state money and do use free cash, that any debt payment can be made with the levy limit. I'd say trying to do that with the school, despite the fact that the state's ponying up roughly $500,000, I think it's just pushing it a bit. And they know it, I mean, we'll see how it plays out, we'll see what the estimate is, but I think you have to do a debt exclusion.
And it's the intention of the Board of Selectmen to try to put the Council on Aging repairs into debt payment within the levy.
We wanted to be able to.
Yeah, that was the original plan, but we're not sure, at least based on my last recollection, we're not sure exactly how we're gonna do this, where we're going, what we're gonna end up with. So we're not really sure about numbers to kind of
Because I think what happened with the design firm coming in and meeting with the building committee is that numbers came in more than anybody expected. And the charge back to them was, okay, we gotta look at everything again. That includes putting a modular building addition instead of going more traditional style. Somebody suggested, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at, which is to switch the buildings there. In that we removed, in the final version, the water department and the building committee removed all of the council on aging. The council on aging would take the space where the old police station water department building now is, when we take that whole thing down. It's not a historic building, it's a 1970. That was built, and we can take it down, and we would put a modular building here, just start a fresh modular building. The building committee did discuss for a while after the meeting, going back and looking at all seasons. The board of selectmen had a discussion about that last Tuesday, and was given the message from the board to be back to the building committee, no, we are not going to be in support of that, period. You got to be looking at other stuff. We've already gone through this once. The only reason it came up was a few weeks before the town meeting where we were going to consider the renovation a couple of years ago. The idea of doing all seasons came up. We don't want to go through that again. We need to go through and see if the town wants to do a project across the street now. If they do, that's great. If they don't, well, then we're at square one again, and we'll look at it. But we're not looking at all seasons at this point.
As Charlie said, the townspeople have supported in 2 different occasions architectural drawings for a renovation project. So it's clear to us that that's a wish of town meeting. That's the one thing that they definitely supported. So what happened the last time is we were in the process of this renovation project. As Charlie said, all seasons came up. We sort of aborted the idea of renovation and went to town meeting 2 months later with this other project that ended up failing. So we find ourselves in the same situation where we're looking at this renovation not coming out as the price that we want, we still need to tweak it. So to give up this process and go back to something that's already failed, like, I think we need to finish the job the town meeting asks us to do, which is to finish looking at this renovation project. And if it doesn't work out because it's not cost effective and it's not going to give the seniors a building that can be useful, then yeah, then we need to start looking at other options. But at this point, it's not something the board thinks that we should entertain. I don't know.
Has the board talked about regionalizing with other towns?
That actually came up at the building committee meeting. So, yeah, we haven't reached out. I know that Plimpton has no council on aging. In fact, they don't even have a council on aging budget. So they don't do outreach programs like we do. They don't.
But we have been entering into talks, or about entering into talks with Clinton, just see areas that we could do some combining that might be cost effective. We're actually, tomorrow night, we're meeting to discuss a particular issue and then try to throw some other things on the table. So, yes, to answer your question.
As far as functional aging building, if you go back and look at traditionally through the history of the town, they have been very, very comfortable with the additions on the police station, the fire station, the school, the addition to the library. And I think it's much easier sell to go try and put an addition on when you try to own the building and all the other complications and problems. With the addition, you solve some of those problems when you put them on. Just to take another building that's not sure about what's going to have to be done to renovate it to make it usable. So it's a lot easier to say if you're going to put an addition on that fit our needs than to take something and renovate it.
So, do you want to look at the other things that Charlie left blank so that we can sort of give?
What I've done.
Yeah, that's speaking of, yeah.
So do you want to go to the single-family average minimum for the selectmen's pay?
Yeah.
Put that on the top of the list.
So we talked about special ed and that being really something that we need to keep our eye out. I can't be at the meeting next Monday at the school. I don't know if they're even going to be able to present any numbers at that point for sped.
I did ask them if they could present. I know they can't tell us which year the students are in, but if they could kind of give us an idea of which 2 or 3 years that this money is moving through the system.
Yeah.
Because it's from age 3 to age 22.
Yes.
So if we see a large increase in the early block, we're going to have to deal with that ongoing. But if we see light at the end of the tunnel for a large placement of out of district,
Yeah.
then, you know, maybe we have a better understanding of what we have for needs within the town.
Right, because that line item, I know in years past, when we were in a bind, we had a student leave, and so that relieved us. But more times than not, it's the opposite effect, that we have more students. So that, again, is key, and I think it's great if they can give us sort of a projection. You know, they never give us names, it's just sort of year by year. Vocational, that's another one that we're seeing increases in. We had sort of a stable time where you'd only have 1 or 2 students. I think over the last few years, we've seen that steadily increase, and so we need to, that's a number that could, at 25,000 at a minimum. I think the tuition is 20,000, and then sometimes the transportation can be another 10.
Yeah, last year we were planning 33,000 per
Yeah.
student.
So I think that we need to kind of, I would, if I were you, add at least 2 students into whatever we had last year and be hopeful that it was that. But we have seen the trend of that going on.
You have the budget for last year.
Silver Lake, you know, they're in the middle of a contract negotiation. That's certainly going to see some increases. They too are going to have a 12% increase, at least on their health insurance. So we have this year a benefit in the sense that our population has decreased. That's something to be relieved for this particular year, but whatever decisions they make, next year we may have extra students. I mean, we never know what's gonna happen, so we can't make our decisions based on, wow, we have a lower amount of students. We need to still keep it to be, I think, level service and not add programs.
So if you added 2 students to that line, Kim,
Be an extra
we're at
60,000.
159 now. We'd be at 219.
I think if you go back, I think you'll see that we've added at least a student.
I know, and there's a large push for vocational
Yeah.
programs right now.
I would add 2 more to that.
One thing is with the percentages, the 1% down, there's no guarantee that Kingston and Plimpton will do this with us sometime in the future, but I think we can go in with good intentions and not simply say, sort of like, oh great, our assessment is either down or it's pretty close to even, great, we'll say yes to anything.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is, as Kim said, I think part of the reason also is to take the interests of Plimpton and Kingston in mind and not base our recommendations simply on what Halifax can do.
Yeah, I spoke at the last Silver Lake meeting, and I think they understand that we'd be looking to work together again.
Speaking of the 3 towns, the Silver Lake land legislation,
Yes.
I had talked to Senator Brady's office earlier this week, which I have to talk to him today. He's holding the bill up, at the very least until he hears from the 3 communities.
Okay.
His chief of staff said that the senator is trying to get the text changed to include votes in 3 towns. We'll see what that happens, but it's in the Senate right now, but at this point, because they're in informal session for the rest of the year, it only takes 1 person to say no and it's blocked. So my hope is that either he will be successful in getting the text changed or successful in simply saying no, and we'll revisit the subject again next year. See how that plays out.
My feeling on that is really strong in that we vote on the budget. 3 times have to vote on the budget. So let's take that some other idea what they're gonna do with the money vote. If they get it, it's going towards the budget, so it still comes through the 3 times voting.
I agree with you completely.
Okay, so Silver Lake, the next item would be step increases at the school, at the elementary school. Again, those need to be budgeted. We don't know what that amount is, but we'll know until we get their budget. And then we step increases for the town, that's definitely set in stone. And then we have the annual wage increase for the town employees. Maybe that's something I personally support, but we don't know what percentage until we report.
Just keep in mind on that, last year, a large percentage of people saw a 0% increase. This year, max, they'll see a $7 per month, so that's $84, so.
Are you talking about what's that based?
Social
Social
Security.
Security is, again, a flat.
So $7 max, if you're at the max, is what you're gonna see. So most people that are getting that won't see more than a $100 increase.
The other thing, Charlie, that I thought about, and I think this came up at the financial team meeting, did we budget the new number for dispatch in this?
No,
No, so that's another savings.
no, because we didn't know what was happening for sure. Because that took a vote.
If it goes down for fiscal 18, then yeah, there's going to be some savings. But yeah, I've not budgeted in.
Okay, that's okay, but that's something once we get closer, that we might have some club there. Does anybody have any wish lists for the upcoming year? The only wish list I would have, and I know we talked about it a few years ago, it's been a while since the subject came up. The only wish list, if we had a sufficient amount of money, would be some kind of adding hours to a human resources person. That would be the only.
I'm sorry, what kind of?
The human resource,
Oh, yes.
adding hours to that department to help use. I mean, that's the only thing that I personally think that would be a good thing, but we haven't talked about it, that's just
Is that currently under discussion at Wage and Personnel?
Not yet, we haven't discussed it. We were discussing raising the longevity too this year and taking out the merit increase.
Well, more and more benefits and concerns for employees, they've been thinking of everything. I think it takes more hours to deal with that than we're doing right now. You really do, I was always the person who I understand, but there's only so much you can do. And
Right.
you're occupied with other things too. But you need to have someone else in a significant position to not support it.
It came up in a very cursory fashion. You didn't really discuss it, you just touched on it.
Is that something you guys would bring up with Plimpton too?
Yeah, I guess.
Only because, I mean,
Everything's on the table in terms of what we can do together, but, some things are practical, some things aren't.
In a partnership, there's got to be a certain level of equality and sharing. If what we're going to do is going to cost the town, our town more to make it work, then it's not something that I see doing.
I just didn't know, I mean, I know you can you can outsource that type of activity, so I didn't know if there's something that, where, I don't know if the MMA has like a group that you can outsource to for benefits that would help alleviate some of those items here in town.
Not in the sense of the things that we need hands-on here. And again, this is just me coming out, I apologize, I haven't even talked to them about it, it's just sort of been part of something that I think is important, so I don't even know how many more hours we would need, but I just want to kind of plant the seed that I may be putting in a proposal that the region personnel to seriously look at that request. And we can all talk about it and talk about what we think is affordable, certainly, but I just think it's something that we need if they really do. So, and I don't know what it's going to look like. So,
Charlie, the IT position?
Just leave it alone at this point. I don't see a need for any increase in it.
Okay.
And the only reason we would do something like that would be, again, with Plimpton, that Plimpton outsources and they seem satisfied with the situation.
How about replacement of items for IT? Is that, because he's...
The big thing right now would be the servers.
Yeah.
I still need to work out what we can do with the budget we're in this year, and whether we can make that happen. This is something I wish I knew more about, so I could actually be able to talk about with some knowledge. Caesar is promoting doing virtualization, but the number is like $70,000.
I don't, for the amount of, for the amount of activity on the server, I don't think that,
I also just, setting aside anything besides the number, I have a very difficult time convincing myself that I can go to town meeting and adequately describe why we need to go and do that for that amount of money. I'm not saying that's the wrong amount of money. I'm not even saying that's the wrong project. But given everything else the town needs to be doing, and given how it's not just so tangible, like the ambulance as an example, that I don't, and given that the servers need to be replaced, there's absolutely no question about that. But in my mind, I can't get behind it. I can't comprehend why it should be that amount of money to replace servers that, in my head, should cost several $1,000s a piece. So maybe we need two, maybe we need three, five. You plug them in, you get them hooked back in the network, and it might be some stuff you gotta get done, but I don't see why you need to spend that much money. So we're not there yet at making a decision, and like I said, if we go with just replacing them, putting them in the computer room, I expect that a large part of the cost we should be able to do within the budget the year we're now.
okay.
So my hope is that there to be a large amount requested, for instance, the capital planning committee for a project. But we're going to continue replacing the regular desktops on whatever cycle we're trying for. Again, that should be a normal part of the budget.
Okay.
So I can remember when you could buy a brand new Volkswagen for $1,500.
You probably can buy that same Volkswagen for $1,500 right now.
Yes, but on the other hand, Troy, when I went to my reunion last year at Columbia, in my knapsack was my more computing power than what happened on campus when I was there.
Probably more computing power than your pocket.
I say it with jest though, but you said time to change it. You buy a car today, it costs more to repair than it did to buy it. With those electronics, taking over.
One minor item, I was going to talk about this schedule really, is just looking to some security cameras in the building.
What was that, Mike?
Some security cameras.
Could you say it
No. I mean, to add, it's something that we could use. We had an incident a couple of weeks ago that it would have been nice to maybe see who might have perpetrated the minor infraction.
It was not me.
Well, we were actually trying to catch Kim on camera.
You got 3 in hand now.
Now, is this a every town building?
In this building in particular.
Some
Okay.
sense of the maturity changes. I mean, the fire station is tended, the police station is tended 24/7. This is the one place that's not tended 24/7.
I mean, the police check it regularly, so that there's that, but it's minor money in my opinion, and I was gonna just look into it.
So just like a feed down to the police station?
Or even a closed loop inside the building. It doesn't have to be elaborate, just something to add. There's too much traffic in and out of the building to get into any kind of elaborate system. But a camera is a simple way to at least identifying
A potential issue.
Okay.
The only other thing in connection with that, to security, is not that it's insecure, but I'd like to, and maybe I need to talk to Jerry and the capital plan committee, but the front doors, street
Yes.
side doors,
Yep.
need to be replaced.
There are any other building besides Council on Aging and school? Are there any other building issues that we should be aware of for the upcoming couple of cycles?
There's some furnace stuff that Jerry put off last year that will probably rear its head when I meet with him. I know we talked about the furnaces, or the AC units down at the police station, the furnace here. So, I mean, you're looking probably a couple $100,000 in furnaces when all is said and done. Now, I don't know how aggressive a schedule he wants to get on, but I know he forego quite a few projects last year for the lift, so that's a potential big ticket item.
No, the house people.
Your friends,
Your
yes.
friends.
Your friends have leaving.
Your friends are leaving.
Hey, come on, that was a good one.
Well, those are the two buildings that we spoke about.
See, I had a friend. That was my friend. Just letting you know.
And one in town. School building. Council on Aging.
I missed that.
All right.
Is that so noted?
It'll be in the minutes.
Oh, it'll be in the minutes.
I missed that whole thing because you were telling me your friend was walking around.
Yeah, he said my one friend in town.
Oh, I see. Oh. She got many friends. We'll find out the private one.
Well, that's all right.
That's why I'm leaving early.
Well, that's all right.
So the school building, I know we have a meeting coming up next week to walk around. Next week, Charlie, or? Oh, this Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, the committee's invited to go to that. I'm not planning on going over to the meeting, reading, and coming back and doing my other work here.
Okay.
It's really for the consultants and for the school staff to go around and just looking at stuff and working everything out.
Okay.
What time of day is it?
They'll start at 9 o'clock. 9 a.m.
I was planning on going, so if you want to go, we'll post it.
Well, So I forwarded posted, post for the selectmen.
Yeah, that's right. Just in case.
The posted for the building, for the school roof building, posted for the selectmen.
Okay.
Okay.
So, we don't have a meeting set up with the 3 other towns yet, but I have been emailing back and forth with them to try to find a date that works. This year, the governor's budget will be out on time, where last year it was a week late, or 2.
Inauguration day.
Yes.
I'll be out inauguration day.
What, January 20th?
Yep. So, when is Silver Lake's next meeting? I don't think I have one calendar. They're not gonna have, they used to do shared budget and
What was the second version?
The second, no, second. They're second. I'm pretty sure I put that on my calendar.
So it would be, Thursday the 15th. Oh, no, no, it would be the 8th. I'm not, guaranteed me. I'm going to organize some of these.
Are any of the selectmen gonna go to the elementary school, the 5th?
I'm gonna be out of town. I don't know if Tom. I think
They're
Charlie was gonna. Charlie, were you gonna try to go?
What's the school like, right?
No.
No, the Halifax Elementary.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Monday. Yeah.
So we were all invited to go to that meeting.
I'm going to.
That'll be you.
Oh,
Me?
Sorry, I also want to read it.
no, I would go, but I'm going to see my niece in Oregon during the week, just for like a few days, and I'm on Monday through Friday morning, so I can't go to any of those school meetings.
I'd love to be a travel agent.
I'll be disappointed.
JetBlue was running a special according to my calendar
Yeah,
from the,
Black Friday, I mean, they're doing a Cyber Monday.
so any other major things you guys see coming up?
No, and then after this, we need to talk about Julie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
The only thing I'd like to reiterate is that that meals tax be rolled out of here, because I know when we presented it at town meeting, I was presented to the taxpayers that it would be used for capital items. So I think to put it in the budget is not in accordance with what we voted on.
Well, that number dropped pretty quickly, didn't it? Right? But that's not, yeah.
So I need some, there's letters that go out by the end of this week with budget, so I need some direction as you go to tell people, we're talking about the service.
I would say level service
Yes.
with what we worded it last year as step increases and any other issues with your department that,
Unforeseeable things, meaning that it's a new mandate, there's a higher fee for a license, like things like that. So that it's not, it still maintains the level service.
And that if they want to present, something new, that they certainly can do so, but they'll have to send it in as well to the public.
yeah.
Right, which is what I know will happen with that right there. But we need to keep talking about the needs, even if we can't.
Yeah. Is that, do you guys want to take a vote on that?
Sure.
Is there a motion?
I'll move that we propose level service plus steps as last year was written.
Okay.
Okay.
Second?
Is this for the content of the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next up was the appointment of new members. You guys can't leave yet.
Okay.
Did you, I'm just, over here getting propped up. New appointments, did you guys interview the latest?
So we did, and we also got a talent bank request form today.
I have an idea what Drew.
Okay.
I think Drew is a really nice young man, and I think it's great that he wants to come forward and volunteer in some capacity. I'm not so certain that the finance committee would be the first place to put him. It's such an overwhelming board and you have to learn so much stuff quickly. But I almost think it might benefit him if he's interested in the finance, because I had sort of mentioned the solar, because I know
Yeah.
that's what he does. He didn't seem quite interested in a solar position. And I know that what the intent of our board was is that we were trying to build with the capital planning
To step up.
committee as sort of a step to the finance committee. And although we don't have a technical opening on capital planning, I think it would be a nice thing for us to offer him to join us at our meetings for capital planning. He wouldn't have a technical vote, but he could participate in discussions and learn a little bit more about the board. And then maybe in a few months, if there happens to be that there's another opening, you know, if we get that other resignation, then maybe
So they put, the changes and stuff, but I don't think he's really for the responsibilities that are involved in it. It's just my first impression is that I think that the deep water.
Speaking from experience, I think the transitioning from capital plan to finance would definitely behoove his outlook on things.
Yeah, I don't want to discourage him from
Yeah.
to volunteer for something in town.
Yeah.
It's just, at this point in time, it's kind of saying that maybe we ought to let it go speed with first, before since the big vote.
I think that was the consensus. Finance committee is a tough board to just jump into without some background, without having attended a lot of town meetings, without having seen the boards, without having any involvement in it. But things I do for capital planning for exposure and just preparing, I think is good. Definitely don't want to discourage people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
So Charlie, I don't know if you want me to come tomorrow, if you want to have him come, do you want to come?
Well, I think we should be doing that,
Okay.
because this is good. No. I just think it should be one of us.
Well, since I'm on capital planning.
I love volunteering for stuff. Chief investigator, chief communicator, spokesperson, I love it.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. The 10 town discussion.
Oh, yeah.
You done with us?
So when Charlie sent us the list,
Yeah, let's talk about
we've kind of
Oh, you mean the
comparison. So we've kind of dropped some of the list because the metrics, we have to really change them quite a bit to try to get to 10,
Well,
right? Because the metrics were at 7.
What happens is there's only maybe 6 that meet strict criteria.
Yeah.
And you start having big towns that either are farther away that need it, or else are towns that, okay, it needs 3 out of 4, for instance. And which are fine, I mean, as long as you know, you try and still pick, you start off with that series of criteria and you say, okay, now that we know the instance plot and the criteria study, that's what it is to get the 10 closest towns.
So your recommendation is to just do what is like us, even if it's not 10, so it won't
No,
be...
the other way around.
Okay.
Because I think you want more data around the less down.
But then we need to come up with what's the secondary criteria that you
Well,
would
what
make a
I did in my note is I specified here are the towns that just fall outside, meet 3 out of 4, for instance, and here's why. And I came up with a series of recommendations as to which communities to add. I think the last one I added to the list, the 10th out of 10, was Carver.
Yes.
And as I pointed out, Carver is a regional for your school system, and the criteria they don't meet is the budget, which means their entire high school and middle school budget is inside their regular budget. For us, it's, I don't know, call it 50%. If we added $5 million of what Silver Lake gets from the state, for instance, to our budget here, to match our assessment, we'd be much closer to the budgeting part of it. So, and the only other major difference with Carter simply is one structural is their fire department is still
Volunteer.
volunteer, but we don't use them as a comparison for our fire department. That's all.
I was at a meeting close to a year ago, and they were talking about when you're using towns as comparative, doing the map of topography, where they're located, kind of traffic they get flowing through, the kind of looking at tourism, and everything, all adds up. The budgets and stuff, they look similar to that, but the makeup of housing, it's a big difference. I mean, we compare ourselves to North Brookfield, but they get a lot more snow than we get. They get a bigger budget for that. They're more open for that. So the transportation and issues that we don't have, that's why it's difficult for me to even try to compare ourselves to the town, because everything is unique in itself.
But I think that 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe longer, Peg was on the committee when we looked at the new criteria. Remember, it used to be just population and budget, and then we did per capita income. And then we did, it needed to be within,
Within 50 miles, it's within 50 miles,
Right.
the single family average home,
Right.
and then,
And by adding those things, we're getting closer. We're never going to be exact, like Troy said, it's really difficult. But at least it's better than it was 10 years ago when we first had the concept of, comparing ourselves to like towns. Because we know with Duxbury, they may have the same population, but they certainly don't have the same makeup for commercial. Like
Yeah.
What are you
Avon.
trying to say?
No, I'm saying, no,
We
but
don't
like
have town
Avon,
really as
the
a
town of
town,
Avon
yeah.
has a similar budget and a similar population, but their commercial is.
The commercial's huge, yeah.
So it's a totally different mix.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I mean, we're closest to Hanson
yeah.
than any other town, just because of our geography, where we have no highway running to us.
We get there from here.
Our makeup of the percentage of homes versus business and industry is about,
Plus, we're also both part of a regional school system.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're really comparing apples to apples.
Yeah. Lovely. Would you feel comfortable with
Is there
that?
a key specific set of data that you want to get from this comparison? I'm a little bit lost on exactly what you're going to use it for.
We use it sometimes when we're doing salary surveys. That's probably.
It was basically wage and personnel
Yeah,
based.
Personnel uses it a lot in our research.
That was the biggest thing that it was used for, because we don't really compare. When we look at them, we don't usually take the time to go through their budgets, particularly, and see how many police officers they have per thousand.
Yeah, but we did that for the fire study. When
Well, I know we did when we did-
expansion, so we didn't.
We used
looked
it
at
there.
What they had for fire department, their response call times, all those kinds of things. So we have used it for things that are outside of the vision.
But finance committee, we're not comparing yearly those
Right.
internal budgets,
Yes.
just the overall total budget.
I mean, there is a way to statistically use that kind of data through regression analysis to
Oh,
know.
you totally lost me, Stu. So say that again, it's through.
It just, you don't have to be an exact match
Right.
to understand, what the progression is.
Right. But I think what used to happen is that we had such a broad way of comparison that we didn't always.
You could cherry pick what you wanted to
Yes.
compare. So by going to this list of,
Okay. But it just, if you're cherry picking is the right word, just because you're going to pick a data set that may, support what, your conclusion already
Right.
is, not really trying to derive what
What
the
it should
solution
be.
should be.
Right. I understand what you're
It's
saying.
like comping the house.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand.
yeah, if you're the sales agent or if you're the buyer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But the key is,
And you make adjustments.
It's like selling the same insurance policy to two different people for the same reason, but it doesn't match up.
Right. So the other towns you have listed are Carver, Dayton, Freetown, Rehoboth, Rochester, and Whitman. So,
But you don't have Fall River in there?
no. So the 10 towns would be Acushnet, Berkeley, Carver, Dayton, Freetown, Lakeville, Halifax, Hanson, Rochester, and Whitman.
yep,
I think that's fine.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept those 10 towns as the comparable towns.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously.
I put it in my,
Do you guys have any public participation?
We're not talking.
Okay.
Sandy, do you have anything for us?
This is Calabash, where are you?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So for,
Mrs. Calabash is, right?
this is Calabash.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
I think you were before my time.
People don't understand.
he says it on there, but I don't know.
Which,
I've heard it, I can't place it.
I'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
You don't know those either.
I know,
I'm old.
Like I said, only you and I apparently are getting it.
I just like F troop.
My parents brought me up on the classes, don't worry.
so for the next meeting, we're gonna meet with the next meeting, we're meeting with the elementary school on the 5th.
The 5th.
The following meeting is with the fire chief,
fire chief at 7:15.
and then the new person to interview
Yep,
at 8.
at 8.
Thank you.
This is next week?
Would be the 12th.
12.
Yeah.
So I'm possibly not going to be at that meeting.
I had 6
In the right, possibly. No, board.
Currently do not have a conflict.
Okay.
And the fire chief, and is your name Maria?
I can't remember.
Good job.
Yeah.
That increase available.
Do
She's
you
a
guys?
professor at our college.
Yeah.
Beast.
And she teaches a
Bridgewater
class
State.
on Monday nights, and it's the last night,
Okay.
Melinda.
Linda. And it
Okay.
goes from 6:30 to 8:40.
Did you tell her that all our meetings are Mondays?
Yeah.
For the upcoming semester?
I think she switches,
Okay.
so she's gonna let them out, her students out early that night.
Okay.
She said she could be here by 8.
Do you guys have anything to add to the agenda? Did you email us out a copy of the updated liaison list?
No, it's not done yet.
Okay. Just making sure I didn't miss it. I missed the
You
email
didn't
from
miss
you
it.
Potentially
earlier.
might change her in the short term too, right?
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, it wouldn't change until at least we start the budgets.
Right. I'll have it done.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Is this building closed other days besides the holiday in December?
Is the building closed?
Right, so the whole liaison list,
Yes.
I want to make sure I can make appointments with people. So I don't know the holiday schedule for the building.
Huh,
I
just,
can get you.
So, okay, thank you.
I can tell you which days we're not here.
Perfect.
If anyone else wants it, let me know. I'll copy one.
You could get me contact information for any new additions, my fire chief email.
Sure.
Stu?
Green Bay and Eagles in Philadelphia. Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.